Welcome back to the Kevin O'Connor Show. We get a good one today, going through 7 questions about the playoffs, the draft, and trade rumors. And let's start out with the Eastern Conference playoffs. We didn't talk about that with my episode with Dane Moore covering the West on Sunday night. So let's talk about the East here. Question number 1, how long until we see Aaron Nesmith defend Jaylen Brunson? To me, this is one of the keys of the entire series here, because last playoffs in the second round between the Pacers and the Knicks, Andrew Nembhard was the guy who started that series off defending Brunson. Brunson went off for 43 points in game 1, 29 points in game 2. Knicks went up 2-0 in that series, and then the Pacers made a change. Aaron Nesmith got put on Brunson, and then Nembhard went on Dante DiVincenzo. Of course, DiVincenzo is now in Minnesota, not in New York anymore. But this time around, I wonder, are we going to see Nesmith against Brunson? Because the results were great last year for the Pacers. Against Nesmith, Brunson shot only 25 of 65, 38.5%. And then against Nembhard, he shot 25 for 37, 67.6%. So for Indiana, if you're trying to contain Jaylen Brunson, the results last postseason were in favor of Nesmith over Nembhard. Will the Pacers start the series this way? We'll see. We'll find out Tuesday night, game 1. And if they do, are they going to switch to it at some point? Because the challenge is that the Knicks are bigger now. They got OG Anunoby healthy. He got hurt in game 2 last year. That's in part why Indiana was able to make that switch. OG gets hurt in game 2, misses games 3 through 6. Now they have Mikal Bridges. They got Mitchell Robinson, who was out last year as well, missed all 3 matchups during this regular season. And so if Siakam is defending OG Anunoby, and if Haliburton is on Josh Hart, can Nembhard bother Bridges? And what if the Knicks go with 2 bigs in this series? If they go with a lot of Cat, a lot of Mitchell Robinson, does Turner stick to Cat, or does he defend Mitchell Robinson? And if he defends Mitchell Robinson, does Cat get defended by Siakam? And then who defends OG Anunoby? I feel like there's a big domino effect here, and it begins with Brunson, though. How do you contain him? Regardless of what the Knicks are doing with their lineup choices, Indiana needs to cut the head off of the snake here. How do you contain Jaylen Brunson? And so far, last postseason, this season, it's been Aaron Nesmith's length and aggression that's been best equipped to at least make Brunson look human. Question number 2, will the Knicks create a size advantage in this series against the Pacers? Because on paper, the Cavs were supposed to do it. Jarrett Allen, Evan Mobley, but Allen forgot how to rebound. He played soft in the final 2 games for Cleveland. Evan Mobley had a pretty solid series overall, but he wasn't featured inside in the ways that I think a lot of Cavs fans probably wish he was. And obviously, regardless of how those 2 performed, the Cavs shot like garbage from 3 in the series. So are the Knicks going to have better success with their 2 big lineups? Throughout this postseason, Karl-Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson have played 90 minutes together. They have a 113 offensive rating, a 98.2 defensive rating. That's plus 14.8 if you can't do the math. An offensive rebound percentage of 39.8%. Not quite Steven Adams, Alperen Şengün rebounding over half of Houston's misses, but 39.8% is pretty damn good. So I believe personally, and I've felt this way all year long, that the 2 bigs were going to be integral to New York's success. And I feel like I've been proven right for the Knicks so far in this postseason. They've played those guys a lot more often in the playoffs than they ever did during the regular season, and it's been great for the Knicks, as shown in the numbers. And I also believe in this series against the Pacers, they create bigger matchup issues. 1 big, it's pretty simple for Indiana. Turner, going to defend Karl-Anthony Towns. Siakam, going to defend OG Anunoby. Haliburton's going to hide on Josh Hart. And then it's going to be Nembhard or Nesmith on Bridges, Nembhard or Nesmith on Brunson. But with 2 bigs, where does Haliburton hide? Where are you going to put him? Does Siakam need to defend Mitchell Robinson or Karl-Anthony Towns because you got Turner defending one of those guys? Does this mean OG Anunoby has a potential advantage to create his own shot or attack closeouts and use his size to his advantage? We'll obviously see how this plays out, but Cat and Robinson played 40 minutes in round 1 versus Detroit, 50 minutes in round 2 versus Boston, and they dominated that matchup. I think those two are going to have to play even more against Indiana and really give the Knicks an advantage. And this relates to my next thought, my next question on this series, because we know what Brunson can do. 43 clutch points so far this postseason, leads the NBA by far in the playoffs. Jokic, I believe, is second with 26. And obviously, he's done for the postseason now. Number 3, can Cat have the series of his life? Towns dominated the Pacers this season. 21 points in October, 30 points in November, 40 points in February. No Miles Turner that matchup. Thomas Bryant is playing a lot of heavy minutes. He started for Indiana. You can probably throw all 3 of those out. This season, though, when defended specifically by Miles Turner, Karl-Anthony Towns shot 13 of 22. He was 9 of 15 from 2-point range. Those are great numbers, obviously. He was very good this season when he was defended by Miles Turner. But past seasons, during his time in Minnesota, he was only 19 of 53 overall and only 11 of 34 from 2-point range. So Cat was great this year against the Miles Turner matchup, but not so good in the past. 11 of 34 from 2-point range is not a good number. So Turner historically has done a great job on Karl-Anthony Towns, and this again brings it back to my too big point. If you can get Turner off of Cat, and in Indiana, if they feel like they have to put Turner on Robinson because Robinson might be creating offensive rebounds, second chance opportunities, tip outs, then Karl-Anthony Towns might have a major size advantage. He's 22 of 44 in post-up so far this postseason, not shooting the ball as well from 3, 34% from 3 this postseason, including only 16% last round against the Celtics. If you can get Cat inside with a size advantage, I think that's another thing that could give the Knicks an edge in the series. Number 4, can Haliburton reach a new level? Brunson, like, we know what this dude's going to do. 20, 25 shots, maybe even 30 shots some nights for the Knicks. Haliburton's going to take 10 to 15. Like, that's just the reality. He has one game this postseason taking over 20 shots, and it was an overtime closeout game against the Bucks. Is that number going to have to change? I love Haliburton. The dude is an awesome player. He is so fun to watch. Like, I've always loved passers. I love Steve Nash in the 2000s. I always liked watching Chris Paul. I loved Rajon Rondo. These pass first point guards are like just some of my favorite players. I've always liked pass first point guards, and I still love Tyrese Haliburton as he is. But Siakam is not a guy who creates a lot of offense this year for Indiana. Nembhard, we'll see how he performs in this series against some of these long-armed, lengthy Knicks defenders. This might have to be the series that number has to increase for Haliburton into Brunson range, at least on a handful of occasions in the series, because, look, man, like I said, Siakam last year against the Knicks, he dominated Josh Hart. But why is he being defended by Josh Hart? Because OG Anunoby's out. You're going to see OG against Siakam this year. Siakam was 17 of 26 when defended by Hart last series last year. Posted him up over and over, shot over the top, used his size, overpowered him on drives. The Pacers are gonna have OG on Siakam this year. We're going to see Indiana put Bridges on Haliburton. That's a much tougher matchup than throughout this postseason when Haliburton's been defended by Gary Trent Jr. and Kevin Porter against the Bucks, Max Strus and Isaac Okoro against the Cavaliers. It's going to be tougher for Haliburton, but also I think they're going to need more from him. Again, only over 20 shots only once this entire postseason when he had 22 for 26 points in the closeout game against the Bucks. I think we're going to have to see more of that from Haliburton for Indiana to win the series. I initially felt Indiana had the edge in this series, but as I dove into it a bit deeper over the last 24 hours after my podcast I did with Dane Moore covering the Western Conference series, I'm now leaning towards the Knicks. I'll pick the Knicks in 7. I think this is a very close series. I think it's going to be an epic series, a fun series. For anybody who's not a Knicks or a Pacers fan, they're going to be stressed out. We're all going to be having fun. But I'm going to pick the Knicks in 7 to go to the NBA Finals over the Pacers. With the Western Conference, I covered that entirely with Dane Moore on my Sunday pod. Go listen to that if you want to hear about the Wolves and the Thunder. But today, let's talk about some trade rumors, because a lot of the stuff that's been talked about in Chicago is not just about the draft. People are wondering what's going to happen with Giannis. Of course, he has a meeting this week with the Milwaukee Bucks about his future, about the state of the team. We'll probably talk about that later in the week once we hear some details about that. But the other thing a lot of people in Chicago at the Combine were wondering about is, what the hell are the Celtics going to do? They got their second apron penalties kicking in. Jason Tatum just ruptured his Achilles. He had surgery. He's out for most, if not all, of next season. The Celtics' 2032 first-round pick is frozen for now because of the second apron penalties, unless they can unfreeze it. Complicated rules. They can unfreeze their 2032 pick if they're not in the second apron in 3 of the next 4 years. So question 5, what changes are the Celtics actually going to make? Their GM, Brad Stevens, spoke on Monday at a press conference. Didn't really say anything. I feel like I honestly wasted my time watching it. So good on Brad Stevens. Did his job. Didn't give the media anything at all. Kudos to him. For me, I wasted 30, 40 minutes of my life. And for him, one thing he did say is, like, we haven't had time to talk about what we're going to do this summer. Maybe that's true. Maybe they need more time to plan because there's a lot of potential opportunities for them. We know they're going to have to trim salary. We know that's going to happen, but who? Drew Holiday is going to be 35 years old. He has 3 years and $140 million remaining on his contract. He's the guy people talk about most, but 3 years, $104 million at 35 years old after an underwhelming season, shot only 35% from 3 in the regular season, only 34.6% from 3 in the playoffs. The list of teams I'd imagine for Drew Holiday that have interest would be short, and any return for him probably wouldn't be too significant at all. So Drew Holiday, yes, there's a chance you could see him moved, but the return I cannot imagine would be that great. Kristaps Porzingis, that's the guy every Celtics fan wants to see traded right now after he just completely was a dud in the postseason with this unknown illness. That makes his value super murky. He's not a $30.7 million expiring contract that can be a significant contributor. Clearly, he is a $30.7 million expiring contract, period. That's Porzingis' value right now for the Celtics. He is not a significant value guy right now until maybe this summer playing for Team Latvia. He proves that he's back healthy, but that's a long ways from now. Peyton Pritchard, $7.8 million, has great value. I don't know why the Celtics would move him. Minor savings. I'd imagine if they were to move Pritchard, it'd be like some surprising, ridiculous. You guys are really offering that type of return. Same thing for Sam Hauser, $11.3 million. Solid role player, great shooter. Not a lot of savings if they move him. Derik White, $32.6 million average annual value for him over the remaining 3 years of his contract. Logan Murdoch, my old teammate at the Ringer, said the Warriors might go for Derik White this offseason. That's the type of player they want to go for. That's intriguing to me because the Warriors, in all likelihood, they're going to want to continue with this Jimmy Butler, Stephen Curry, Draymond Green core that they have going. Derik White would be a perfect fit for the Steve Kerr offense. Like, that's obvious. His shooting ability, the high IQ decision-making, the defense, like Derik White would be just glorious for the Golden State Warriors. How desperate are they going to get, though? Because why would the Celtics trade Derik White, who's only going to be 31, still feels like he's getting better every year, even though he's over 30 at this point? The Warriors have the potential after the league year changes till next year. So July 1st, the Warriors will have the ability to trade their first rounders in 26, 28, and 32, plus swaps in 27, 29, and 31. So 3 firsts outright, they have 3 swaps as well. How desperate would they actually get for an offer for Derik White? How desperate would anybody get to go get Derik White from Boston? Because I don't see the Celtics moving White unless it's an over-the-top offer, and maybe the Warriors would be willing to make that. Maybe Logan does know something about their intentions there. All of this leads me to Jaylen Brown. Going to make $61 million average for the remainder of his contract, has by far the highest value to the Celtics, also by far the highest value to anybody else because he's the best player, obviously. Here's my question. If a team misses out on Giannis, could they pivot to Jaylen Brown? And could that team be the Houston Rockets? Could you see Ime Udoka, the head coach of Houston, reunite with Jaylen Brown in Houston with some type of offer like Fred VanVleet, the number 10 pick this year, and some number of future first-round picks? VanVleet has a team option that can be declined if this deal were to happen before July 1st. VanVleet's option could be declined, and the Celtics could cleanly get under the second apron by declining that option, would give them immense flexibility, tons of future draft capital. And without Jaylen Brown, you'd get to see what Derek White could do, what Peyton Pritchard could do with a ton more touches next season. You'd get to see what guys like Baylor Shireman and Jordan Walsh, these young guys on their rookie skill contracts, what can they offer? Can they give more with more minutes and more touches? There'd be less pressure to move off Drew Holiday or Kristaps Porzingis for low returns. And obviously Jaylen Brown is Finals MVP. He has been awesome, for Boston. He won a title, of course. He's been a great player, a great co-star next to Jason Tatum for years. But he's going to be 29 next season. He's going to make $53 million, and then $57 million, and then $61 million, and then $65 million by the time he's in his mid-30s. This might be his peak value for a team that whiffs on Giannis and decides, let's go to somebody else. Let's try for somebody else. So that's where I'm coming from, where I look at the situation of Boston. If you're not going to get a lot for Drew or Porzingis, and if you're not willing to trade Derek White, who has the most value? Who's going to get you the most back and still allow you to get Tatum back the following year and maybe be in a position to keep contending? With that said, Stevens did say one thing during his presser today. He said, fireworks on draft night with us, I don't think so. As far as moving up into those levels of the draft, he's talking about top 10 because they interviewed Cooper Flagg, as I reported last week. They interviewed Trey Johnson, a potential top 5-6 pick at the draft combine as well. He said, as far as moving up to those levels of the draft, I would guess that is probably not on the table. So, of course, Stevens is going to say, yeah, of course we'll entertain an offer from the Houston Rockets for Jaylen Brown. He said nothing during the presser, but I just wanted to point out that he doesn't expect fireworks, at least publicly. He doesn't expect fireworks. So we'll see about that with the Celtics. I do think the team that loses out on Giannis, whoever those teams are, could be all of them if Giannis stays in Milwaukee. I think you're going to see them make calls to Boston for Jaylen Brown, a Finals MVP, a guy still in the prime of his career, and maybe could be even better next season. Maybe Boston takes a step back next year, learns a lot about the rest of their roster, and then has a higher draft pick because they do own their own 2026 draft pick. And who knows? Could get Brockton, Massachusetts' own AJ DiBonsa. Who knows? Just saying. You never know. The Dallas Mavericks just moved up to number 1 with the 11th best odds. Maybe the Celtics win next year. So I think that's a possibility to think about if you're a Boston fan. Speaking of the draft, I also published a new mock draft on Yahoo Sports. I'm not going to go through the entire thing today, but I did want to go through some of the risers and the fallers in this mock draft after spending my whole last week in Chicago interviewing a bunch of these guys, talking and meeting with people around the league as well. So arguably the biggest combined loser, according to teams, is Derik Queen, freshman big man out of Maryland. I now have him going number 12 to the Bulls in my mock draft. I previously had him number 8 to the Brooklyn Nets. Number 12 for Derik Queen. Look, man, undeniably has skill. I love Derik Queen. I think he's a very fun, entertaining player, but he was last in max vertical leap, last in standing vertical leap, last in lane agility, second to last in three quarters court sprint, second to last in the shuttle run. He didn't shoot well. He was one of the worst shooters there. He had a very noticeable pause hitch type of look in his jumper. It did not look better than it did during the season at Maryland. If anything, it looked worse. He was moving slow through drills. He wasn't shooting at game speed. There's a lot of criticisms of Queen, and I did interview Queen as well. I sat down with him for 30 minutes. We're going to air that probably later this week on the podcast. I think he's a really good kid, but he's definitely a kid. So he needs a lot of seasoning, a lot of time to mature both on and off the court. And I think that's why you're seeing teams talk about him as a guy who not going to move up into the top 5 or 6, more likely move to the back end of the lottery. And for him, that's okay. I think less pressure on him early in his career, falling into ideal situation, that could actually be a good thing for his long term. But this week specifically, he did not show out, unfortunately. Number 7, who were the draft combine risers? I'll give you 3 of them. Carter Bryant out of Arizona. I have him going number 11 to the Blazers in my mock draft. Carter Bryant, I'm like very split on him. I think he's a very theoretical player, but he's almost 6'7", almost has a 7-foot wingspan. Teams were very impressed by his interviews, the maturity he showed as a freshman out of Arizona, the understanding of his game. Like, a clip went viral on social media of him talking about how he watches a lot of Tumani Kamara. I'm sure his agent fed him that name to say because it gets all the draft nerds excited. Ooh, Kamara, he's hardcore and knows deep cut players. But like Carter Bryant, no doubt about his athleticism. Teams believe in his jumper. I'm still a little bit less high on him. He's 11 on my mock, but I have him, I think, 15 or 16 on my board. He's just a very theoretical guy to me. I'd probably have him higher, like if I'm the Blazers. I want to take a swing, and maybe this guy with his size and versatility turns into something special. But he undeniably is looking more and more like a lottery pick, not like a guy who's going to go back to Arizona since he's just testing the waters. Next up, Maxime Reynaud, number 23 to the Pacers. Actually didn't change on my mock draft at all. I had him 23 last mock draft as well, but he proved a lot to really cement that status. And a lot of teams, I think other evaluators in the draft community are now catching up to me, and others that have had him in the top 20-ish range on our boards. But 23 to the Pacers in this mock, shot the hell out of it in the scrimmage, off ball movement actions. This dude is not just a 7-footer who stands up and shoots catch and shoot threes. Reynaud is a guy with skill off the dribble, skill with movement. He moves like a wing. Teams wanted to see him defend, though, and he looked good in the scrimmage, protecting the rim, rotated well. He was very communicative throughout the scrimmage as well, barking out calls as the low man. It was impressive to see him do a lot of that in this setting with a bunch of new teammates. So for teams that had questions about Reynaud's defense, I think he answered a lot of those questions and now looks firmly as a first-round pick. I still think he belongs top 15 or so. We'll see if he gets up to that point through pre-draft workouts, because I have a hard time believing a guy 7 feet tall with the shot that he has and the potential he has on defense would fall outside the top 20. But for now, number 23 to the Pacers in my mock draft. The biggest riser, I interviewed him last week. You saw it on the podcast. Cedric Coward from Washington State. Currently have him going number 17 to the Minnesota Timberwolves in my mock draft. Maybe that'll be too low. Maybe it's about right. We'll see in the coming weeks ahead of the draft itself in late June. But he measured in 6'5" without shoes, with a 7'2" wingspan. He was one of the best shooters in every drill, one of the best athletes across the board in everything they measured, speed drills, leaping drills, everything. He was near the top. And if you listen to my interview with him, this is really the number one reason why teams are hype about him. If you listen to my interview with him, he's one of the best people in the draft. He's amazing, self-aware, mature. I had a team tell me he's the most mature individual they've interviewed at the Combine in many years. So look, man, Cedric Coward, we'll see how the next few weeks go for him throughout pre-draft workouts. But Coward, Reynaud, and Bryant seem to be three of the biggest risers in mocks right now after their weeks at the draft combine. And speaking about mature players, I have an interview with Con Knipple, Duke prospect, that you should go watch now. But thank you for watching this episode, and we'll be back again later in the week talking about the playoffs, the draft, trade rumors, and whatever else is going around in the NBA. Thank you.